Right, now this video is only going to be of interest to a very specific group of people. Those people are people in the UK who have Sky television who are interested in getting hold of the Sky Soundbox. Now, it's not one of those reviews where I just get it out of the box, say it sounds good, give it a thumbs up and then move on to the next thing. No, I'm talking more about the user experience because this has given me quite a few issues that I think any potential purchasers should be aware of. So let's get on with it. The Sky Soundbox is really just a large chunky soundbar. It's an amplified speaker array that has drivers pointing in all directions. They say it has 360-degree sound, and of course that means the device has. It doesn't mean sound's going to come at you from behind in the room. It's all coming from the front, but it's just a wider sound stage. It's made by the people that make these very high-end Bluetooth speakers, so they know what they're doing with sound, and they've teamed up with Sky to release this device. Now, Sky say it should be £799, but we'll reduce it to £299 for subscribers or £249 for multi-room subscribers. Well, I've got it for £249 because I'm a Sky Q multi-room subscriber, but it's never worth £799. But at £249, you know, it doesn't seem like a bad deal. Things didn't get off to a good start though when it went on sale on the 1st of November 17 and the discounting process got mixed up, so it looked like I was going to get the speaker for free plus £250 in my pocket. Anyway, they managed to figure that out and I finally got the box delivered. The person handing over the parcel said that's a heavy box, and it was. It's very chunky, it feels dense, it's surprisingly heavy for its size. Quite a bit of that is taken up with the box, which is very good quality, but inside the box we have a quick start guide and the instructions, a remote control, the AAA batteries for that, an HDMI lead and a power lead and an optical lead, and of course the speaker itself. So looking at the speaker, well, you want to pick it up with two hands. You can do it with one, but it's a little bit of a strain. Anyway, the top of it is made out of metal, which surprised me. There's grills all the way around the outside and on the back as well. On the top here, we've got the power input and volume controls. Looking round the back, we've got the power input, optical input, HDMI in and HDMI out, and a USB socket which won't be used. It's one of those things where they'll update the firmware or whatever, but it's not for consumer use anyway. Oh, and the base of the speaker is covered in a thick rubber mat which will stop it from moving around when you turn up the bass. Now, as far as setting this up, it's very simple. Instead of the HDMI lead going straight from your Skybox to the TV, you're just putting the speaker in the middle. So your output from the Skybox goes into the speaker, the output from the speaker goes up to the TV. The remote control is styled to look like the Sky Q remote. It's quite lightweight, thin, a little bit slippery in the hand as well. There's only a few buttons on here: power on off, mute, volume up and down, source select and AV sync. If you press that and then the up and down arrows, you can adjust the lip sync or the delay a little bit. Anyway, put the two AAAs in there and we're ready to go. Right, now before I go any further, I'd like to try and explain the setup I've got here that I was trying to use the Sky Soundbox with. Behind me is an LG 65 EF950V OLED TV. Now into that I've got plugged a number of things. The majority of those go through an AV receiver. I think it's a Marantz NR1607 that I've got down here. 10 different things go into that, some of them standard definition, some ultra high definition and some HD. Various consoles, Ultra HD Blu-ray player, a computer, you know, all that kind of stuff, a Fire TV box, they all go into that. And then that goes into the TV. There's one thing that doesn't, and that's the Sky Q box, because the Sky Q box, when I sent it into the AV receiver and then it went onto the television, it kept reporting back that the screen wasn't 4K ready. Well, of course it was, and so was the AV receiver, but that was just a weird quirk. So what I did instead, I got the Sky Q box, I routed it directly to the television with a separate AV input on the side here. So if I want to watch Sky Q, it's just on AV2 and the rest of it's on AV1. Majority of the time I'm just watching the Sky Q box. Now if I want to hear the Sky Q box in surround sound, I'm using the audio return channel over HDMI from the TV, which goes back to the AV receiver, and I've got an input on the AV receiver that I select, and it says TV surround, and I mute the sound from the television and all the surround speakers come on. Now it's a Atmos setup, so there's two at the front, two up-firers, a subwoofer down here, two more at the back, so that's 5.1.2 setup. Anyway, it's all working fine, everything works fine, but the reason I needed to mention this is because a lot of the complication is taken away from the Sky Q box, because effectively Sky Q box goes from that via one HDMI lead into the TV. That's it. That's the entire connection. It's missing out the AV receiver entirely. So there should be no problem here. It's not like I've set things up wrong or I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pretty experienced in setting up AV things, and all the rest of it works fine. But I've had a bit of problem with the Sky Soundbox. Now, the reason I got the Sky Soundbox is because when I'm watching normal TV, say I'm just watching the news or something, or breakfast TV when I get up, you don't need the whole surround system on with your 5.1.2. You just want to be able to hear what's going on. Now, TV speakers are always a bit thin. You know, they don't sound particularly good. There are some TVs with decent quality speakers. This isn't one of them. It's got all right speakers. I've heard worse, but it's not particularly brilliant. And sometimes dialogue is a little bit hard to determine. So I thought what I'd do, this Sky Soundbox could go on top of my centre speaker here. Fits nicely as well, which is one consideration for getting it. And I thought it would be seamless. The Sky Q box goes into this goes into the TV. I turn the Sky Q on, turn the TV on. Sound comes through this, not through the TV. Everything sounds really nice and clear. And then for those times where I want to watch a movie in surround sound, I'll mute this, get the AV receiver on, and do it that way. So it seemed like a normal system. So effectively what I'm trying to do is replace the TV speaker sound with this. Doesn't sound too difficult, but I ran into some difficulties. So just winding things back a second, here's a setup I've got. We've got a 4K capable HDMI lead that goes up to the TV, another one that goes into the Sky Q box and the speaker, and then the power that goes into the speaker. The only other thing that you might need to change, if you haven't already set this up, is going into the sound on your Sky Q box, making sure it's outputting Dolby Digital over HDMI, and also HDMI control is switched on. So then I ran through a series of tests of sound coming from the Soundbox, then from the TV speakers, and also out of my AV receiver. And of course, whilst the Soundbox isn't as good as the AV receiver and all those separate speakers, it's a heck of a lot better than TV sound. I'd put it 10 times better than the sound that comes out of my TV speakers. Much richer, fuller, deeper, better quality, more distinct, clearer, just better all round. Now, when you use the infrared remote control for certain things, the Soundbox will give you an audio feedback. I'll demonstrate that here.
Optical, Bluetooth, HDMI.
Now, if you'd rather have the Sky Q remote control the volume of the Soundbox, so you don't have to use the separate remote control, you can reprogram it by holding down 1 and 3 until the lights flash at the top, then type !1, 2, 9 and 4.
Cycled bespoke unit has completely Yes.
And of course the Soundbox also functions as a Bluetooth speaker. Now, I've seen promotional material for this speaker saying it's got earth-shaking bass. Now, I disagree with that. It's definitely not up to the standards of a good subwoofer. It just provides a decent, well-rounded bass which fits well with the rest of the sound. So at this point, everything seemed to be going fine. I was happy with the sound quality from the Soundbox, but then I realised I was missing out on a feature. According to the manual, if you press the question mark button on the Sky Q remote, an additional menu option appears to the left of audio description, which is specific for people who have plugged a Soundbox into their Sky Q box. It's not there on mine. Looking at the manual, you can see there it's listed as Soundbox. Now, what features does that menu option allow you to access? Well, those are the controls to get into the different sound modes: speech, late night, or kids, which I'm not too bothered about. It's also, though, supposed to integrate with the Sky Q box. The Sky Q box provides metadata from the programs being played, so a sports event will sound different to a movie, for example, and it doesn't seem to be talking to one another. So I went and had a look online to see what I could do to make that menu option appear. And as always, the online help was anything but. It was just telling me I had to activate Dolby Digital output from my Sky Q box, which of course I already had on. Looking in the forums to see if other people had experienced similar issues, and yes, they had. And one chap suggested that toggling the HDMI control on and off in your Sky Q box brought it back for him. And whilst that had worked for some people in the same boat, it hadn't worked for all of them, and I was in that latter category. So the next thing I did was force a software update to the Sky Q box, but I was already running the latest version of the software, so that didn't do anything. Of course, then you go around swapping your HDMI leads around, putting different ones in, different sockets. Also, then you go on to reboot your Sky Q box just in case it's that, and then also try by pulling the power in case that makes a difference, but of course it doesn't. And then finally, I picked the speaker up and plugged it into a different television in a different part of the house. And sure enough, as soon as I pressed the question mark button, the menu appeared immediately. So it was some kind of incompatibility issue between the TV in the lounge and the Sky Q box, the main one in the lounge. This is on a Sky Mini box. Anyway, looking at the options here, we can see they are all there, but I'm not really going to need any of these. I wouldn't select speech or kids or late night or anything like that. I'd just leave it in the normal mode. And also, I noticed it automatically boots into the Sky Q sound mode being switched on. So then I thought, well, it doesn't matter that I can't see this option when it's plugged into the TV I want to use it on, because I don't need to change any of these settings. They're all set up as I'd have them. But then I also got into thinking, well, hold on, the fact I can't see the menus, does that mean the Sky Q box and this device aren't communicating properly, and that metadata isn't coming through, which will change the equalisation for the different events? I really couldn't say. But my guess is that if it's not bringing up the menus, it also won't be pulling through the metadata. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to try out, and that's plugging the speaker into a different LG television that I've got upstairs. This is an LCD LG TV, the other one's an OLED. And on this one, when I press the question mark button, the menus popped up straight away. So I can't really say that it's down to the manufacturer, it's down to the specific model of television that this speaker doesn't seem to like for some reason. One thing that people suggested, turn on the HDMI control in the television as well, which is called SimpLink on LGs. Didn't seem to make any difference at all. And also, I should mention, the other tellies in the house don't even have those options, so it's not something you can switch on or off. Now, the next item I'm bringing up because it would be amiss of me not to, although it's not something that's of concern to me, but it's noticeable by its absence, and that is HDMI Audio Return Channel, or ARC. That's the sound that's sent from the television over HDMI back to the speaker. This speaker doesn't have that feature. You have to use the optical lead if you want to send sound back from your TV to the speaker. The reason why you might want ARC is because it's much simpler. Everything's all in one. So whatever goes through the speaker, whether it's going into it from the bottom or back to it from the television, just comes through it. Whereas with this device, if you want to listen to your built-in apps on your TV or one of the additional inputs on your TV through the speaker, you're going to have to select optical, and then when you want to watch Sky Q through it, you have to switch it back to the HDMI input. One other thing to be aware of with regards to this sound box is that it's quite a chunky little speaker. It's not really like the size of a sound bar. It's quite tall. I'll put the Sky remote next to it. You can see, if you've got one, how deep it goes all the way up to the home button there, and it's about the same depth as one as well. You need to keep the sides of this clear. You need to have space for the sound to get out of the sides, as well as the back and of course the front. So you don't want to put this in a cabinet, and you also can't put your Sky Q box on top of it. It doesn't recommend that. You need to keep it separate. Now, in the interest of completeness, I did try and get inside the soundbox just to show where all those speakers were pointing, but unfortunately I was unable to get it open, so you're just going to have to make do with having a look at this picture. Now, you might remember back to that needlessly drawn out introduction I gave at the beginning of the video that I mentioned I'd had some problems with this, and so far I've mentioned a couple of things and they haven't really been big issues. But this one, this was the showstopper for me, and it's the fact that when you leave the soundbox alone with no video signal coming through it for 20 minutes, it goes to sleep. Fair enough, no problem at all. The Skybox also goes to sleep. So normally you just bring the Skybox back to life by pressing the Sky button, and the light goes from amber to green and you watch telly again. Doesn't work with this because the soundbox doesn't come back. It doesn't automatically switch on again. Okay, so there's no sound going through it. Big deal. No, it isn't just the sound, it's the video. It cuts off the video. When it's in standby, no video gets from your Sky Q box to your television. You also have to turn on the soundbox if you want to watch TV. And you can't do that with the Sky Q remote. The original Sky remote could switch on an AV receiver. It's always had that ability. However, the Sky Q remote doesn't have that function, as you can see on the image on the left. The only way that you're going to switch your Sky Soundbox back on again is by picking up the dedicated remote control and pressing the power button, or going over to it and pressing the button on the top. Now, at this point, I'm unsure whether this is how it's supposed to work. Looking online, I could see other people mentioning the same issue. I was unable to find anyone saying that theirs automatically switched on with the Sky Q box, but I have a feeling that's how it's supposed to work with that HDMI control. Now, I did try this with the other televisions in the house as well, and none of them the box automatically switched on when you turn the Sky back on. So it is an issue, and that is the thing that's killed it for me. I don't want to have to switch on this speaker every time I want to watch television. So until they resolve that issue, I'm going back to my original setup of having the TV deliver the sound through its built-in speakers until such a time as I decide to turn on the AV receiver to hear the full surround sound experience. I don't have that middle tier option that I was hoping for of having decent quality sound for normal TV viewing. Okay, so on this occasion, this one hasn't worked out for me, and it's for one very specific requirement that I had that the Soundbox doesn't fulfill, and that is that I wanted it to be a seamless experience. I wanted to be able to switch on the Sky Q box, the sound comes out of the speaker. Instead, I have to switch on the Sky Q box and then switch this on. Now, I know you can use universal remote controls and harmony remotes, things like that. I'm not interested in that. I just wanted it to be very simple. You see, the thing is, it's not just me in this house. I can operate all these things. The missus wants things just to work. She doesn't want to have to pick up different remotes to do different things. She just wants to use this remote, the Sky Q remote, switch on the telly, switch on the Sky Q, and the sound will come out of it. She doesn't want to have to switch on another device, and I understand that. I'm fully in support of that. It should be seamless, and it didn't work for me. It might work for you, and maybe they'll be able to update the firmware on this so it will work for me as well in the future. Now, I know in the past when I've done reviews of things like a Wi-Fi doorbell, and I said it didn't quite work for me, I got so much stick because everyone said, well, it works fine for them. Yes, this might work fine for you as well. It does not work fine for me, and it's me that I'm reporting on, not everyone else. So yeah, this is a very personal review, but just to let you know, on certain occasions with certain equipment, you might find that the Sky Q box doesn't automatically come out of standby. Whether that's a problem to you, you'd have to decide for yourself, but it is a problem for me. So anyway, that's the end of this review. As always, thanks for watching. How come whatever time I pop round, you're always just sat here?
Well, I could sit there, but it would affect the continuity.
No, I mean, why aren't you at work?
I keep getting the sack.
What, from all the jobs?
Well, sometimes there's other reasons, like at the paper factory.
Why, what happened there?
They folded.
What about that job at the butcher's?
Oh, they gave me the chop.
The health club?
They said I wasn't working out.
The ceramics factory?
I got fired.
balloon makers.
Let go.
And weren't you going to train as a clairvoyant?
I couldn't see any future in it.
So, what are you doing now then?
I'm thinking of becoming a joke writer.
Have you come up with any yet?
No, it's more difficult than you think.
Well, they don't have to be good. I've seen some proper unfunny rubbish on that there YouTube.
Well, I wouldn't want to insult the audience by just resorting to cheap puns.
Well, it seems like you might be on your own there.